Hello, my monstrosities. Hello once again. Today I bring to you a Vanguard Onslaught video. I want to talk about Vanguard Onslaught again to see if it's going to make me eat crow. Now that we have another addition to the roster that's pretty darn good for it. We also already have a result with Vanguard Onslaught with the new datasheet. That datasheet being Hyperadapted Raveners. We've talked about it. Look pretty good. And the Raveners got an updated datasheet. Look pretty good. So I guess technically, in a way, with two new datasheets. We already have seen at Iron Cage SummerSlam Nathaniel Bjorge going X and 1 using Vanguard Onslaught. Hello, I hope this missive finds you well. I am writing to inform you that your biomass has been reappropriated under section HUNGR1, Hungry. Our collectors will be arriving soon. Please do not resist. Thank you and have a wonderful day. Pretty funny. And I want to talk about a little bit about Nathaniel's list. Possibly a lot of bit about Nathaniel's list because there's a lot of innovations here that I think really shows signs of everything. Excuse me. Uh, Regarding this, and if there was a person to look for innovations with Vanguard Onslaught, it's Nathaniel. Okay, so what do I want to talk about? Vanguard Onslaught is, for a refresher, the detachment in which every Tyranid unit can fall back in charge, but Vanguard invaders can also advance in charge. You also can make Death Leaper your warlord in this detachment. That's cool, that's cute. Hyperadapted Raveners, for a refresher, are our new Synapse Raveners that our leader can attach to normal Raveners. They have Sustained Hits 1, they have Hypersensory Aura. Once per battle round, you can Rapid Ingress or Heroic Intervention for 0 command points, and can do so even if you already targeted a different unit with that stratagem this turn. They have the Prime Claws and Talons, Anti-Monster, Anti-Vehicle 5-up, Twin Linked. 6 attacks on the Prime, 3 attacks on everybody else, hitting on 3s, 5-2-2, goes up to 6-2-2 because of Synapse. You are Synapse. Or your Ravener Prime is. If it gets sniped out, I guess technically you're not anymore. And Venom Bolt is Assault, ignores cover, Torrent, 12 inches, d6 plus 3, 6-1-1. They are 10 inches of movement, T5, 4 up save, 6 wounds on the Prime, 3 wounds on everybody else. 7 up leadership on the Prime, 8 up on the regular, or the non-primes, 1 OC each. Cool. It is looking pretty good for the Hyperadapted Raveners. And let's first go to Nathaniel's list, because Vanguard Onslaught, as we typically know it, triple Broodlord Gene Stealer bricks. Okay? In the past, there was also triple Melee Warrior bricks on top of that, and actually, they're a bit before they were triple Warrior before the Broodlord Gene Stealers. Anywho, then that's fallen off, and then opting for one unit of melee warriors, but one Neurotyrant with Zoanthropes. And there's a couple of things here with Nathaniel's list that are both missing, but I don't mean missing as in, hey, you need to put that back, but missing as in, wow, maybe we don't need to anymore. So, let's go. Triple Brewlord, Death Leaper. Neurotyrant with Hunting Grounds, Winged Hive Tyrant with Chameleonic. Triple Max Gene Stealers, Triple Lictors, Double Neurolictor, Double Regular Raveners, double Hyperadapted Raveners. This allows for a lot of things. One, there's no Biovore here. And I'm glad that this has been explored, especially in Vanguard Onslaught, because this is one of the things that. And going to the Hyperadapted Raveners twofold, actually. If your army already does something really well, and your detachment does something really well, you don't need to shove a lot of that thing in it to do it better than really well. We score points and we kill little shit. That's what we do. So, to the people that are remiss that the Raveners no longer are Strength 5, AP 1, Damage 1, we didn't need any more of that. I'm so glad that they're AP 2, Damage 2. And you go mathematically, you have a max of 6 damage versus a max of 7 damage, but this is where I get frustrated with Math Hammer bullshit. Not that Math Hammer's bullshit, but when people try to aggressively get a, no, see, this is why. Because people forget you're still playing the fucking game and things happen. So, AP1 in range means that there's cover. Sometimes the AP1 gun isn't going to do it. And to melee, there's a lot of Marines and Marine-esque shit where they have Arm of Contempt. Contempt like shit. Which means if your opponent sees that you have AP1 on your attacks, they have 2 or 3 up saves, they will pop Arm of Contempt. And even better when it's in melee, they know that this is the only activation they gotta worry about. There's not like, okay, I might get shot from that, and that because of the Armor Contempt change is that, well, it only does it for the attacking unit. In melee, it usually, not usually, happens fair enough, but enough times, you're only fighting one other unit. So if you only have to activate it for that one unit, you have AP 0. And then your opponent retains their good saves, they make their saves, then you are sad. So AP2, and to the math hammer point, people run calculations all the time. It's like, oh, this will do this, that, whatever. Are we playing the game? It's cool to look at the numbers to know what it might and should do on average, but there's too many things in this game. Looking at something that we'll be doing in here, what if you're +1 to hit? What if you're +1 to wound because of something like that? What if your opponent decides to be -1 to hit, -1 AP, -1 to wound? Too many things change to just go, oh, well, this is how it goes. We have enough things in our army that scores points. We have enough things in our army that kills little shit. So that's my little rant on Hyperadapted Raveners, and Vanguard Onslaught is a detachment that scores a lot of points and an army that scores a lot of points. Yeah, I think we're fine. So going over to Nathaniel's list, one thing that's noticeably missing, no Biovore. No Biovore to try to get some spore mines down in a point. Now, unless I'm missing it, unless it was missed, I'm not seeing it. So, I'm not, this isn't a anti-Biovore situation where I'm like, no, stop taking it. I just think that at a certain point, you need to recognize what concessions can be made in your list when you already do a thing very well. Also, now mind you, Nathaniel is built different. I wish I had the results on Vanguard Onslaught that he does, okay? But, just saying, when you recognize what your list already does, you can let go of some things, okay? Now, next, it's not like the points aren't there. We see triple Lictor. Usually, double Lictor, okay? It's not like we can't drop a Lictor for a Biovore and then get an additional 10 points in the list. I think on the other way around, honestly, you can drop even more and go about things if you really feel you need to fit something like that in. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Now, another thing that's missing, Neurotyrant, no Zoes. Going to what Vanguard Onslaught kind of has been recently, triple Broodlord Gene Stealer squads, 1 melee warrior brick, and Neurotyrant with Zoes. Zoes to deal with the heavier shit. Maybe Hyperadapted Raveners with twin linked anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5-up, so it's guaranteed that even on T12 monsters and vehicles, you're doing it on 5s. Maybe you can actually drop the Zoe unit. And as we see, Nathaniel did and doesn't seem to be missing it. Let's go to the scores, by the way. 100, 197, 77, 100. Remember when I said you're familiar with the fact that you know how to score with Tyranids and do that? So it's not like we're missing out on that many points on top of that too. Especially when you get even more synergy with that. And this is a guess. I don't know this one. Actually, I don't know shit, but this is guesstimation on the list even further, okay? Maybe one time, maybe a unit remains unattached. Maybe you pick games that they attach, the Hyperadapted Raveners to the regular Raveners. Maybe they've been unattached every game. But with Raveners having the ability to uppy downy and having a second squad of that, or I'm sorry, downy uppy, and having a second squad of that, maybe one stage a massive brick with the Hyperadapted Raveners strung out in your deployment zone. That way, you have something holding your home objective and, screening out for you. And if the situation arises for them to be somewhere else, they can come off, go somewhere else, or because they are T5, 4 up save, 3 wounds, it might take a bit for somebody to try to get through them to take whatever they needed off of your home, right? But on top of that, maybe they don't even need to get off the ground and go into reserves because you're playing a 10-inch moving unit in a detachment that lets you advance and charge. So 16 inches of movement being possible, and then making a charge, hopefully, maximum of 12 to declare, right? But maybe then you just need to fight in the midfield. At that point, you don't need to do all that. One unit scores you even more points by jumping up and down in other places. Maybe you do one brick strung out again, home deployment, one squad as a counter punch to take some shit because as we see in Nathaniel's list, no Zoes, right? No Zoes. Maybe the Hyperadapted Raveners give you enough anti that admittedly we've been kind of missing, even though they would have always wounded everything on 5s except for 12 and above, and there's less of that in the game, especially with the Knights nerf. But nerf is a way to say it because they got more wounds, and apparently mathematically they have like 20 something more wounds, so that's the equivalent of another Knight. So there, and they have feel no pain, yada yada yada. Say all that to say that maybe you can actually keep one massive and then let the other two genuinely specialize. One that is scoring you points by being in places that your opponent doesn't want them to be or because you can deploy back there. And another is actually if you need to hit something a little bit harder. Maybe you need to hit a land raider or in the mirror match a Tyran effects and just tie them up a little bit, especially if you can tie up let's say Maliceptor. And let's say that you've lost a couple of Raveners. Let's say that you've missed. Okay, it'll go on. Something that has blast or a DDA, something like that. Any of that shit that eventually gets you. Going back to the Maliceptor, the reason I said the Maliceptor in the mirror match is because if you lose 3 Raveners, putting you below half, then you get -1 to wound, but you still retain because of the anti-monster 5 up. So something like that. This is a very helpful unit, and I wonder if they remained max bricks the entire tournament, if there was flexibility where you attached and didn't attach, all of that. I wonder if Nathaniel kept it fluid, where some did, some didn't, or if there was a standard game plan on that one. So, no Biovores, apparently don't need it. Triple Lictor. Here's the other thing that I want to talk about with the Lictor, okay? So, sorry, regular Lictor first. Let's do that. The regular Lictor, you have to be careful. A lot of people get this wrong. Pheromone Trail. Once per battle round, you can target one model with this ability with the rapid ingress stratagem for 0 command points. Hyperadapted Raveners can do so even if you already target a different unit. If you want to bring down 3-4 units of things, right? Hell, looking at Nathaniel's list, there's a possibility that 5 units. Sorry. See? This is what 5 units have rapid ingress for free, okay? But you can't do it more than once with a Lictor, and the Lictor has to go first, okay? So, you drop Lictor, then your regular, your Hyperadapted Raveners can come down. Because somebody else did it, you can still do it for free. But if you do it with Hyperadapted Raveners, legally, you cannot do it with the Lictor on top of that, and you cannot do it with several Lictors in a battle round. So, watch out for that. Now, most opponents, they'll be chill. They also probably don't fucking know, and I'm not saying try to pull a fast one on your opponent, but I'm just saying most people you play against, if you go, oh, fuck, I meant to put my lictor down first because technically this, that, whatever, they'll probably let it slide. Not saying you should bank on that. Play the game appropriately, lictor first, then Hyperadapted Raveners, but just saying, technically. So in Nathaniel's list, 3 units could be rapid ingressing in a turn. Uh, so that's kind of funny. Now, going back to the list for one other thing, Neurolictors and 2 bricks. Now, I don't know how many Raveners Nathaniel owns. I imagine playing Vanguard this long, you have quite a few, right? But one thing that I was definitely, when trying to write lists for this, was pressed on was points. And double Neurolictor, I couldn't find a way to get to the triple. And because I admittedly still included the Bioform, um, out of habit, definitely didn't have the points for Neurolictors like that anyway. So I wonder if we. I wonder if this list remains as tight because this is a tight knit list. You don't really have too many points to go off, and I do wonder if the Neuro Tyrant stays. Obviously, it has hunting grounds, and if anything, I would imagine that this is staying on your home field, right? Until you really need that flamer to come out. Your deployment zone home objective. Until you need that flamer to come out. And with hunting grounds, just letting more battle shocks happen. The -1 to shadow still is good. I wonder if it's 105 points good. I wonder if that's integral to the game plan, but it will make a lot of things in the game -2 because now you have a 10-inch moving unit that's advancing and charging, and Brewlord Gene Stealers have Scout. So that means then they're also Synapse, so that means in Shadow and the Warp, the -1 from being around Synapse, if you know, as you should have them in combat with other things, right, and around that area. And then the -1 from the Neurotyrant hopefully can get you some more stuff. And going to Vanguard Onslaught Surprise Assault, Hyperadapted Raveners make this even better, and I think they definitely bring Vanguard Onslaught a lot more together. Surprise Assault, your shooting phase or the fight phase. Just after a Vanguard Invader unit from your army has selected its targets, that Vanguard Invader unit select one enemy unit that was selected as the target of one or more of your unit's attacks. That enemy unit must take a Battle Shock test. Till the end of the phase, each time mauling your unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, +1 to hit. If the Battle Shock test was failed, +1 to wound. You now have an Advanced Assault Charge unit. Hyperadapted Raveners, advance, shoot their little flamer, the one flamer possibility to charge, right? Now that you have a reasonable unit in Vanguard Onslaught to trigger this in a shooting phase, you can do this more often and when you need to in positions you might need to. If you have a 12-inch moving flamer, that means that there's a chance that you catch somebody that tried to reactive move away and still get the battle shock test on them instead of waiting to when you're priming up for a charge and then go, oh shucks, I didn't get to do it over there. And that's why it's a little bit confusing that we still don't have Zoe's popping up here because there's just so many battle shock tests that you can now trigger. But looking at the list, where the fuck would you put them? I don't think you can. I personally don't think you can drop a Gene Stealer brick in Vanguard Onslaught. I don't think you can. I don't think you can drop 3 lictors to do that. This is a tight list, and I don't think you can drop a Neurolictor, 2 lictors just to add Zoe's to 200 points is a thing. So that's one thing that I hope changes. I do want the Ravener's points to come down, the Hyperadapted Ravener points to come down 15 to 20 points. Like that, they do make things tight by, full Ravener bricks is 290 points. That's pretty tight. So, but going back to Surprise Assault, if you can get the +1 to wound off, charge into him, twin linked, now you might be wounding a lot more things on 2s, 3s, and 4s, right? That you probably weren't before, twin linked on top of that damage too. Pretty nice. we have tons of shit that can deal with dumber little fucks. The Venom Bolt being a flamer is good for clearing some screens. That also was an issue if you're playing Vanguard Onslaught. If you go second, your opponent has a lot of bodies on the board, and you don't get to the juicy things, or hell, maybe your opponent just brought some screen for the things that you need to try to get into. I'm looking at something like Kroot bringing out 10, 20 men bodies to screen out fucking ghost kills and riptides or whatever. Tau doing that. That's just one example that I could quickly think of a multi wound thing. But hell, World Eaters have Goremongers now. That's 10 men units uh, of infiltrate. String that shit out and make your charge harder. Now you have a flamer to just clear that shit up. D6 plus 3. This clear screens. This trigger surprise assault. You can advance and charge. It's just good. You could get +1 to wound, twin length. It looks like it's just cooking. It is just cooking. Now, but yeah, going to the points aspect, Neurolictors, I don't. I think you still retain them. I'm not saying that you take them out, but yeah, I think that this list is tight, and I do think that this is the answer. I can't see a single thing that I would change, and I don't know shit, but looking at Nathaniel's list, there's I think it's perfect ratios. Even though as a certified Lictor hater, having the capability of telling your opponent, "Hey, I have 3 units that could rapid ingress this turn," that changes the game plan quite a bit. 2 of them have deep strike. That changes your opponent's state of mind, and some people don't really like the meta gaming aspect, the thinking parts of it, and admittedly, this is like take number 2 or 3, so I don't remember if I went on this rant in this recording, but that's kind of where I am on some math hammer things when things get thrown up. And if it's just like, oh, but the math is like, yeah, but your opponent isn't stupid. Things happen. They make mistakes. They think about things. If your opponent knows that you have AP1, they're going to pop Armor of Contempt so that they retain their 2 or 3 up save. They can't. Math Hammer is good to figure out what to do sometimes, but you can't live and die by the Math Hammer. You also have to remember this is a war game, and your opponent will make decisions and have things to keep them alive. So while I typically prefer Von Ryan sleepers over Lictor just for being forward and screening something, infiltrating, and again going to something like the 10-man breaks of infiltrators that we now see armies have access to, and honestly might come up on the rise. Um, Hell, we've seen Nurgling screens. I typically like having bigger bricks that you can put in a spot, clear them up, and screen out for you. That's what I typically like. But hell, telling your opponent I have 3 units that can rapid ingress, 2 of them deep strike, your opponent goes, fuck, how do I screen all of this out while continuing to play my game? And the second that they can't screen that out, you play your game and you fuck them over. Now, Von Ryan's Leapers do have Heroic Intervention for free, so that means in some list, you tell your opponent, hey, if you go here, 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 or here, I can Heroic Intervention for free here, 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 and here. Right? So, your move. But I think you might want to do that in Assimilation Swarm more because you have Instinctive Defense, right? So, uh, tell your opponent, I could do fights first, heroic intervention on a fuck ton of these units. Yeah, that changes things. But as far as Vanguard Onslaught goes, yeah, I can see just handing your opponent the problem of 3 rapid ingresses on their turn. That you can do damn near every turn. Yeah. Yeah, that's an issue. Your Lictor lives and isn't in engagement range. You can pick that motherfucker back up too with Invisible Hunter. Yeah, that I do think that's another aspect that needs to be considered in list writing and looking at Nathaniel's list. I think that's some serious chiz. I think that's some serious chiz. Um, and going forward to what Vanguard Onslaught list look like, I did have a bit of a consideration that now if people learn how to use Trigons, again, not saying that's their best thing, but they are a 140 point beat stick that have 12 attacks hitting on 3s, 9, 2, 3, and previously was the most likely candidate for having a ranged attack in Vanguard Onslaught to trigger Surprise Assault. I wonder if that's a concession that gets made where maybe, you can let go of two like there. The list is damn near perfect. It's in my opinion pretty perfect. I don't know what you do, but I'm just saying. Now that more of us will finally know how to use a Trigon, finally is a bit harsh because it's still not the best. I'll give it that. I'll give everybody else that. But it is another threat of I could either deep strike these 10-man bricks that have twin linked, sustained, anti monster, anti vehicle 5 up to deal with your Rhino and then possibly consolidate your backline. Okay, not that, let's not get that ambitious, but shit like that. Give your opponent that problem. Or I could drop this T10, and as people are also finding out, that's not too tough, but it's tougher than somebody that didn't screen out their back zone is expecting. Their deployment zone is expecting efficiently. Uh, T10, 3 up, say 14 wounds. Do you dedicate any attention to that? And I guess in that case, maybe there's a place to consider dropping a Broodlord Gene Stealer squad. Maybe. Just to give your opponent another puzzle to solve. And hell, maybe you can, let's see, 140 drop. If you drop that, that gives you 90 points left. Maybe then you do take out a small squad of Von Ryan's Leapers for the heroic intervention for free threat again. Maybe you do. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But it would be infiltrating screen that you can advance and charge. I don't know, but I say all that to say that people now learning how to use the Trigon, 9, 2, 3, 12 attacks does still hurt. That's something that people are going to have to watch out for, and especially if you have more ways to trigger +1 to wound. Yeah, that means that your Hyperadapted Raveners could, with a 12-inch flamer, be at one side and make a charge into something something Rhino-esque, or maybe even not Rhino-esque because, you can pop a Rhino, it has, 10 wounds? Right? But something like a unit of Scout Sentinels, Iron Strider Ballistari, Walker type shit that come in units with multiple vehicles attached. The fucking not Goliath trucks, GSC, the Ridge Runners, Achilles Ridge Runners, shit like that. That range of things where no matter what they do, you'll be wounding them on 5s, but you need several attacks to get through all of the wounds. Yeah, a unit that has 3 7-wound models, you might throw the Hyperadapted Raveners while you can throw the Trigon at the Rhino, right? And sure, the things inside might tie up the Trigon at a point, but at the same time, if they need it to be in a Rhino, I don't know. Maybe my bet should be on the Trigon, unless it's something like a fucking truck and there's tank busters inside. Okay, but at that point, I don't know if we've had too many issues taking out that situation either, because they're orcs. 5 up save, 1 wound, right? So I'll say all this that I think Hyperadapted Raveners add such a next level to Vanguard Onslaught that it might truly hit the thing that I've been bitching about. How everybody else goes, oh yeah, Vanguard Onslaught is it's the second best performing detachment for Tyranids when they haven't been on Tyranids in forever, and the results don't match it. And it's just like, have you looked at what Crusher Stampede and the win rate to Assimilation Swarm on some weekends? Like, have you looked at that? Vanguard Onslaught's win rate has been 30s and 40s for the last 3 months, guy. I don't know what you're talking about. But, that's my gripe when people kind of throw that out there because they just go with, oh yeah, that's how it happens. People take it, so that's got to be the one, right? I think you might finally see Vanguard Onslaught actually put up serious win rates once people have access to these Raveners. Like serious X and ones. X. Do I think it can finally be consistent X and O? I think so. I I do think it can finally be that tourney threat that people are talking about. And teams. People bring Vanguard Onslaught in teams because they know, hey, I need to either clog something up and do whatever. I think it can finally do that because they are significantly faster than melee warriors. Significantly. They can take enhancement that you can put Stalker on something, on one of the units. Each time the bearer makes an attack, your Hyperadapted Ravener Prime is +1 to win with 6 attacks. Twin linked, sustained. Alright, maybe. And since they're infantry, right, maybe it is just throw that into something to precision it out with Assassin Beast. Seated Broods, you can take these, you can start them off the board and bring them in turn one because they're they're Vanguard Invader units. You can bring two of these bad boys in turn one. I typically would like doing this with either something as big as a Norn or with Gargoyles for starting Gargoyle Jail really soon. Hell, thinking about Nathaniel's list, that's another thing that isn't in here that we were starting to see little signs of life of Vanguard Onslaught, Gargoyles, and Hormagaunts. Neither of those are in here. Again, the points were probably there in a way somehow, but I don't know. Shit, that's it. Maybe you drop a. I don't think you do. But just thinking about points right now, maybe there is a way. Finally, let one Broodlord Gene Stealer brick go. Put in a Trigon for the heavier melee threat, and a squad of Gargoyles for the screening threat, move, shoot, move aspect. It just opens up so many doors at the things you can do now that you have a 10-inch moving, advanced, and charging anti monster vehicle 5-up twin link sustain unit in Vanguard Onslaught. This opens up so many doors, reactive move. Oh, and I can't believe I didn't say this early. One of my other biggest things that I would bitch about with the melee warriors is that if you bring them in Vanguard Onslaught and you try to keep them alive, good fucking luck. Because unseen lurkers, your opponent's shooting phase, you can make. I should read it thorough in case somebody's here and learning. Sorry. Unseen lurkers, when your opponent's shooting phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, one Vanguard Invader unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, your unit can only be selected as the target of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 18 inches, or if your unit has the lone up ability, the attacking model has to do it within 6. Okay? Uh, so, that's to say that if they target a lictor that you have, maybe 2, 3 of, they're lone up already. They have to get down to 6 inches to actually shoot them. But the thing that I would bitch about with the Warriors is that they only had 6 inches of movement. Banging an advance for another 6 inches, that's 12 inches. That's still a trek to hike if you were outside of 18 to stay alive to try to get into your opponent. So, now with 10 inches of movement and you bang a 6, you get to 16. That's more likely for you to bang a charge that you were already 18 inches out of. Those additional 4 inches is massive. I think everybody can agree that 4 inches is massive, right? So I'm just saying Vanguard Onslaught does have I think finally the missing piece. I think these Raveners are really good. I still think that I would like them to come down in points, but I can understand why GW priced them the way they did. You open up the door with Surprise Assault for a real unit to start the party sooner with Surprise Assault. They're infantry, they can precision something out. Hell, thinking about it, going back to the squad thing and the mirror match, something like, or Morven Vol and the Paragon Warships, they are vehicle, right? Are they mounted? I believe they're vehicle. But I'll go for the surefire one that I know. Old One Eye attached to Carnifexes. Not like we've seen a lot of that in the meta lately, but just saying in the mirror, they have precision. So funny enough, anti-monster, anti-vehicle, 5-up precision. You can precision out Old One Eye. You can precision out Old One Eye. Twin Link sustain anti-monster 5-up. That's kind of shitty. And then leave Carnifexes hitting on 4s with no rerolls. Good luck. Good luck. Oh my goodness. That's kind of funny thinking about it. Now I guess a more probable one is in the mirror of Hive Tyrant and take that out and then relieve the Tyrant Guard. But the Hive Tyrant doesn't offer the Tyrant Guard anything. And I guess the Tyrant Guard do give the Hive Tyrant Feel No Pain 4-up, so might not be great on that end. But they are AP2 attacks, damage 2, meaning that every 2 attacks they go through, more than likely dropping a Tyrant Guard, putting them on 5s, right? So, I say all this to say that Hyperadapted Raveners, I think, finally makes Vanguard Onslaught the thing that people say that it is. I think we finally will get serious results out of Vanguard Onslaught because of this unit. And I'm excited. I'm excited. I am drinking the Biomass Punch. And yeah, Vanguard Onslaught is looking pretty nice. I think it's looking pretty nice. Yeah, anybody that really does like this detachment, happy for you, and I hope you were able to get some of the Raveners. Yes, that shit sold out quick. But yeah, eventually we'll be able to, right? Don't feed the scalpers though. Fucking $300-400 I've seen. Oh goodness, it's been a lot. But yeah, that's Vanguard Onslaught. I think it looks really nice now, thanks to the Hyperadapted Raveners, and maybe because people might know how to play Trigons now. That's wishful thinking on that end. But yeah, people sometimes, again, just before we close out, once more, if you already know you're good at something, I think you can start experimenting with list a little bit more. Not because I don't think this will be a video, really, but I think I'm flirting with the idea of Hive Guard and Subterranean Assault being home field holders instead of a Biovore, because you can score the points to move around, and the Hive Guard bulky enough, Overwatch on 4s if you're on an objective. So if somebody does try to come take it away from them, good luck. And uh, move them through a tunnel, sustained, ignore cover, put that down on a vehicle when I need to, and possibly uh, next turn or whenever the fuck, put them right back on that home field objective because they're tanky enough. So that's one thing that I'm thinking about, and I'll share that here because I don't think it'll be another video. But Vanguard Onslaught looking good. I've yapped enough. I'm hopeful. I hope anybody that likes this detachment is excited and happy. So yeah, if you like the video, like it. Got a comment for me, comment. And until next time, peace out, my monstrosities.